think it's so fascinating to see how Apple was thinking at the time. Look at this. Subject, why I just dumped the iPad. Hint, size matters. Having used a Samsung Galaxy, I agree with many of the comments below. I believe there will be a 7-inch market, and we should do one. And so, alongside the next generation iPad 4, which, yes, came out the same year as the iPad 3, new iPad, Apple also released the iPad mini. And to be completely honest, I don't think it was all that exciting. Apple had clearly decided that the kind of user who'd be looking for a mini tablet wasn't someone who would care about the cutting edge. So the iPad mini is basically just a tiny iPad 2 in terms of specs, and it came out at $329. The cool part though is that yes, even though this was just an iPad 2 on the inside, the thinner display technology available now and the new unibody outer shell, which had fewer parts, meant that instead of the iPad mini being thicker than the iPad 2, like you would expect given that it's shorter and narrower, it's actually thinner too. This thing is just 7.2 millimeters thin, much thinner than Apple's competitors at the time, like the Google Nexus 7 and the Amazon Fire HD, the former being arguably the first major Android tablet success story. And for the market they were targeting, this was absolutely the right thing to focus on. It meant that this technically inferior iPad mini actually far outsold the iPad 4 that it released alongside. Supply chain numbers suggest that Apple was restocking this thing at 2 times the rate, which you could sort of see coming from the moment the iPad mini was first unveiled on stage. Oh yeah, this is also where Apple introduced the Lightning port to the iPad, which in one sense felt like the future. It could support higher transfer speeds, faster charging, it was way neater and less bulky, and unlike the industry standard micro USB at the time, completely reversible. But on the other hand, users and reviewers weren't completely jazzed that Apple had gone from one self-made proprietary cable straight to another, making the old cable obsolete and requiring a whole new set of accessories. Oh, unless you pick up the $30 adapter. But the 4th gen full-size iPad was still the true flagship of 2012. And since Apple attributed a lot of the iPad's success so far to its pricing, they kept it again. For the 4th year in a row, this was $499. Even though when you factor in inflation, that's actually about 20% cheaper than the first model. Also a lightning cable here, and the machine itself. Which actually sparked quite a bit of drama from people who just bought the previous gen, only to have this thing drop 7 months later. Feels particularly cruel given the naming on that iPad. This was a massive chipset upgrade from the A5X to the A6X, which made this about 2.5 times more powerful than the iPad 3, and so about 6.5 times more powerful than the original iPad.